living with her alleged kidnapper in California, Tennessee schoolgirl Elizabeth Thomas is breaking her silence. Thomas and her former teacher, 51-year-old Tad Cummins, were the subjects of a nationwide manhunt after she disappeared with him in March. She was 15 years old. She tells the Columbia Daily Herald she has no regrets about leaving town, although she doesn't say it was the right thing to do. Thomas said she's now living with her brother, who is homeschooling her. She takes babysitting jobs.
She was 15 years old, quiet, invisible, and desperate to feel seen. He was her teacher, 50, married, and calling her his wife. For 38 days they vanished, until one phone call led the FBI to a cabin in the woods. Victims don't act like that. The story of Elizabeth Thomas. The first thing you noticed about Elizabeth Thomas wasn't her voice. It was the way she tried to disappear inside her own body, oversized hoodie, eyes always cast downward, hands clenched into sleeves like she was cold even in the Tennessee spring. She was the kind of girl people forgot in group photos, the kind teachers had to call twice during roll call, the kind of girl who could sit through an entire school day and not say a single word, and no one would notice, except one person. Home wasn't much better. The Thomas household in Maury County was crowded, loud, and fractured. Elizabeth was one of 10 children, the third oldest, but despite all the noise, she felt utterly alone. Her father, Anthony Thomas, was strict and deeply religious. Her mother had been arrested for child abuse in 2016, accused of beating Elizabeth and some of her siblings with a broken plastic broom handle. The Department of Children's Services had been involved for years. There were court records, therapy referrals, probation officers, but at home fear still ruled. Elizabeth's brothers described her as the quiet one, the one who never fought back, the one who stayed in her room with the door locked or open, depending on which version of control was being enforced that week. She once told a school counselor, "When it's loud at home, I put my headphones in and pretend I'm not there. Sometimes I don't feel like I'm real." She was smart, though, sharp with words, a writer, mostly in secret. She kept journals filled with poems about vanishing, floating, being erased. Some of them were so dark, teachers flagged her for a mental health check. But the calls home never helped. They only made things worse. She stopped writing happy endings and instead began writing escape plans. That was the version of Elizabeth Thomas that walked into Tad Cummins' class in 2016, a 14-year-old girl who wanted nothing more than to be seen and safe. And Tad? He could spot girls like her from a mile away. Tad Cummins was 49 when he met her, a health science teacher with slick-back hair, a southern drawl, and a reputation for being just a little too friendly with the girls. He'd been married for over 30 years to a woman named Jill, who worked 2 jobs while he flirted with students half a lifetime younger. He was known to offer fatherly advice. Buy students snacks, let them eat lunch in his room, especially the ones from broken homes, especially the girls. With Elizabeth, he took his time. He let her sit at his desk, gave her little nicknames, told her she was gifted, told her she was misunderstood. He leaned in close when he spoke. His texts always included hearts. He said he prayed for her. He told her, "God brought you to me. You're special. Don't let the world tell you otherwise." It didn't take long before Elizabeth started staying after class, then during lunch, then before school, and Tad kept finding reasons to write her passes: hall, library, office, any place that kept her away from other adults. One day, a student walked into his room unexpectedly and saw Elizabeth sitting on his lap. When the administration was alerted, Tad said it was a misunderstood hug. Elizabeth, when questioned, defended him. "He's the only person who cares about me." The school launched an investigation. Cummins was ordered to stay away from her. He signed a form, and then he kept seeing her anyway. Behind the scenes, Tad began grooming her into isolation. He told her he loved her. He told her they were married in God's eyes. He convinced her that no one else would ever understand. He gave her burner phones. He taught her how to hide their communication. He told her she was too grown for high school boys. He convinced her the only way out was with him. And then, on a Monday morning in March 2017, Elizabeth didn't walk into class. She walked out of the school parking lot and into Tad's car. She was 15. He was 50. And for the next 38 days, they were ghosts. The silver Nissan Rogue rolled past the edge of Maury County, then across the Tennessee border, vanishing into a tangle of rural highways and back roads. Inside, the air was thick with silence. No music, no laughter. Just a 15-year-old girl sitting in the passenger seat, and a 50-year-old man gripping the wheel too tightly. Elizabeth Thomas, still in her hoodie, still trying to fold herself into invisibility, stared out the window and watched her life disappear behind trees and exit signs. Tad Cummins had a plan. He'd filled the back seat with supplies, blankets, canned food, hair dye, burner phones, a first aid kit, and a Bible. One he insisted Elizabeth read aloud at night. He'd even brought a loaded handgun and rope. He told her it was for protection, but the message was clear. You belong to me now. He turned off both their phones. He told her to stop using her name. They'd use aliases. He said, I'm your husband now. You understand? No one needs to know. Different? She nodded. Not because she believed him, but because she'd already learned what saying no cost. For the next 5 weeks, they became shadows. Tad drove west across Alabama, then Mississippi, then Oklahoma, staying in roadside motels under fake names. He paid in cash. He made Elizabeth stay hidden during check-ins. She wasn't allowed to go outside, not even for fresh air. She ate gas station food, showered under flickering motel lights. Sometimes he read the Bible to her at night. Other times he made her lie next to him while he held her hand and prayed out loud. He called it love. He said it was ordained. But Elizabeth didn't feel love. She felt trapped, frozen, like someone watching her own life through a window. In Colorado, they slept in the car under the stars, hiding in state park lots and behind truck stops. Tad kept a blanket pinned over the car windows. He told Elizabeth not to speak to anyone, not even to pray out loud unless he said it was okay. In one motel, a clerk noticed her eyes, hollow, glassy. She smiled too politely, didn't blink enough, didn't move like a girl on vacation, but she didn't ask questions. She just handed over the key. Tad kept driving. Meanwhile, back in Tennessee, the entire state had erupted in a frenzy of fear and outrage. Elizabeth's face was on billboards. Photos of her and Tad, side by side, circulated on Facebook, Instagram, TV. The FBI issued a $10,000 reward for information, and still, no one could find them. The media coverage split in two. One side said Elizabeth was a brainwashed victim. The other asked, why did she go with him? Why didn't she run? Victims don't act like that. Her father, Anthony, stood before cameras and choked through tears. This man stole my daughter's innocence. Please help us bring her home. But Elizabeth never saw any of it. Tad kept her completely disconnected. No news, no phone, no contact with the world. When she asked to call her sister, he said, your family doesn't want you anymore. They think you're evil. I'm all you have now. On day 23, they crossed into Utah, then Nevada. They ran out of money. Tad applied for fake jobs using aliases. He started pawning jewelry. They slept one night in a shed behind a barn. On day 32, they arrived in Cecilville, California, a tiny, off-the-map town with fewer than 200 people. Tad convinced a man to let them stay in his cabin in exchange for work. It had no internet. No neighbors, no phone, just mountains, trees, and silence. Tad told Elizabeth, this is our forever now. But forever was about to end. The cabin was barely more than a shell. No running water, no signal, no mirrors, no witnesses. For Elizabeth, it became a place where days melted together. She stopped counting them. stopped asking questions. Her world shrank to Tad's voice, Tad's rules, and Tad's twisted brand of love. He made her sleep on the same mattress, told her God had chosen her. Sometimes he cried while holding her hand. Sometimes he told her she'd ruined his life and then begged her not to leave. When she cried, he read scripture. When she flinched, he told her, "You're safe now, you're mine, just be a good wife." She didn't know what day it was anymore. Didn't know who she was. Didn't know if anyone was even looking for her. But someone was. In the town nearby, Griffin Barry, a local ranch worker, had met the couple once when they stopped by a rural supply store. Tad said his name was John and that Elizabeth was his 24-year-old wife. Griffin didn't buy it. She barely spoke. She didn't look up. She looked terrified. A week later, Tad offered Griffin cash to rent his friend's cabin, said he just needed a place to get away from it all. Griffin agreed, but something about the whole thing itched at the back of his skull, especially the girl. When Tad gave him an extra gas can and asked for silence, the alarm bells got louder. Then one night, Griffin saw the Amber Alert image on Facebook while using satellite Wi-Fi at a bar in town. Same man, same girl, different names. He stared at the photo, then at the cabin keys in his pocket, and then he picked up the phone. The FBI raided the cabin in the early hours of April 20th, 2017. Elizabeth was found alive, thin, quiet, frozen. She didn't run into their arms. She didn't scream for help. She just sat on the bed, staring forward, like someone waking from anesthesia, like someone whose soul had gone somewhere her body hadn't yet returned from. She whispered her name. She asked if she was in trouble. She asked if her family still wanted her. Tad Cummins was arrested without resistance. He cried during transport. He told officers he loved her. He said they were on the run because the world didn't understand. But the world understood just fine. Back home, Elizabeth's rescue made headlines nationwide. But reactions were mixed. Many were relieved. Some were confused. Others questioned everything. Why didn't she run? Why didn't she scream? Victims don't act like that, but they do, especially when they've been broken in slow, deliberate, methodical ways. Especially when they've been told over and over, "You're nothing without me. No one else wants you. You're not a victim. You're my partner." Elizabeth would later say, "I didn't run because I didn't know I could." The news showed her photo on every screen. Elizabeth Thomas, the missing girl found. The one they'd feared was lost forever, now standing in an oversized grey hoodie outside a federal building, surrounded by agents and strangers with badges. But the girl they showed on camera wasn't the girl inside. The real Elizabeth was still floating somewhere, still trying to piece together who she'd been before, still unsure whether this, the rescue, the cameras, the home, was another part of the lie. Tad Cummins sat in a holding cell at a federal detention center in Sacramento. He didn't look like a man broken. He looked annoyed, embarrassed, like someone who couldn't believe his plan had fallen apart. In his first court appearance, he pleaded not guilty to transporting a minor across state lines for the purpose of sex, a federal charge carrying up to life in prison. His mugshot spread fast, so did the court documents. The ones that said he'd researched teen marriage laws, that he'd bought KY jelly before the abduction, that he'd called Elizabeth his wife over and over again in interviews with police, the ones that painted the truth in cruel, clinical. Inkgot Elizabeth, meanwhile, returned to Tennessee, but not to the home she had left. Child Protective Services placed her in a safe house away from her parents, not just because of the trauma she endured with Tad, but because of what she'd endured before she ever met him. The system failed her long before Tad Cummins ever said, "Hello." Therapists tried to reach her. She barely spoke. When she did, her words came out flat, like she was reciting someone else's memories. One caseworker described her as alert, aware, but not emotionally attached to anything, like she's still in survival mode. Her father made public statements. Some were tender, others sounded controlling. There were family rifts, questions about custody. The press backed off, but Elizabeth's life never did return to normal. She changed schools, dyed her hair, avoided interviews. The spotlight faded, but the weight remained. Then came the plea deal. In April 2018, Tad Cummins pleaded guilty to transporting a minor with intent to engage in criminal sexual activity. In return, prosecutors dropped lesser charges. At sentencing, the court allowed Elizabeth to submit a statement. It was read aloud by her attorney. "I may look fine on the outside, but I fight with what he did to me every day. I was brainwashed, I was manipulated, and I was so scared. But I'm not his anymore." The judge sentenced Tad Cummins to 30 years in federal prison. Outside the courtroom, reporters asked Elizabeth if she had anything to say. She didn't speak. She just walked past them. Not hiding anymore, but not performing either. Just walking forward. In the years that followed, Elizabeth began slowly reclaiming her life. She started painting, volunteered for victims' advocacy groups, went to trauma therapy, and eventually, when she was ready, she gave her first and only interview. In it, she said, "People always said, victims don't act like that, but they do, because we're surviving, because we're afraid, because we're still trying to believe we deserve to be rescued." Tad Cummins is now inmate 054576074. He is housed in a medium-security federal prison in Texas. He will be in his 80s before he is eligible for release. He sends no letters. He gives no apologies. But his silence is no longer power. It is prisoned Elizabeth. She's building a life, one without him, one with her name, her real name, intact. She's not the girl who ran away. She's not his wife. She's not damaged. She's a survivor. She's the girl who lived through silence and learned to speak anyway.